Forgive me for not being very prepared. I was not expecting to speak. I was expecting to listen. But thank you for inviting me. My name is Kaushalya Devidasi. And, sorry? Oh, sorry. My name is Kaushalya Devidasi, in case you don't know. And I became a devotee in 1969. And of course, from the minute I met Srila Prabhupada, which was a very mystical encounter, I fell in love with him, and it was love at first sight. But what I'd like to talk about is love, actually, and compassion and tolerance, because those are things I learned from Prabhupada a lot. When we went to Amritsar, when I was fortunate enough to be asked to join him in India, we went to Amritsar, and we visited a Sikh temple called the Golden Temple. And Srila Prabhupada toured with us. There was a small group of devotees. It was probably about Giriraj Maharaj, 10 of us. Jamuna and I, and maybe 8 brahmacharis, including Giriraj Maharaj. And they took us around and they showed us all of their food preparations and how they were feeding the poor and all the compassion they were giving to the hungry and the homeless. And Prabhupada left after seeing the temple. And this is a different religion. This is not our religion. And his response was that it was very spiritual. And I noticed that all the way through India when Prabhupada would speak, granted, he was a very passionate speaker, but he was also very respectful of other people. And I think in the world today, we need tolerance. You look at what's happened in Paris and all these things that are happening around the world where there's so much intolerance for different ideologies. To me, the most important thing in life right now is tolerance and realizing that we're all brothers and sisters. And that's what Prabhupada taught us as well, because when we were first together, it was a family. In fact, he always used to talk about us being a family. And it was a very close-knit family, and he would keep us under his wing. And I think that he was teaching us that we are all brothers and sisters. We are all one family, human family. And I feel like a lot of that is missing in the world. And because of Srila Prabhupada, we can remind each other that we are together, we are family. Love, compassion, tolerance, those are things Prabhupada taught. He was so compassionate and wanted to show his love all the time. There would be situations where he would give me various tasks. Like one time on a train, he asked Jamuna and I to make rice. And I don't really, I've thought about it a lot because this is like 50 years ago or whatever it was. He didn't really care about the rice. It wasn't even about the rice. It was about him wanting to see if we would be happy to do something for him. And because we went, bent over backwards to get this to him, he rewarded us with so much joy and love. The smile was as big as the train car he was riding in when we carried in the rice. He lit up the room, and he was so thrilled to have this rice. And it was just rice. It wasn't like we had made him some huge feast. We made him rice. So in the simplest things, he was teaching us, we have to learn gratitude. When someone helps you or gives you something, we need gratitude, we need love, we need compassion. These are things the world sorely needs. I know that you guys, I've told these stories a million times, so I feel like you probably all know all of my stories. But I think it's important to just reiterate how important this movement is, in that it is a loving movement. It is a tolerant movement. Prabhupada used to always say, we are not a dogma. And so as he wrote at the Amritsar temple, the Golden Temple, they said under religion, Prabhupada wrote Krishnite. because he didn't want to identify with any specific religion. He just wanted to identify as a lover of Krishna. And in Gorakhpur, when we were there, and Prabhupada was singing Radha Madhava, he taught us that chant for the first time in Gorakhpur. When he stopped singing, his first reaction was to go silent and just cry. Tears were coming out of his eyes, and he said, "This is Krishna, just playing in the bushes with Srimati Radharani." So it was all about love. And everything he taught me over the years was all about love. One time I brought Prabhupada a fan because the mosquitoes were bothering him. This was in Calcutta, and I came in, and he was sitting on the floor, in the middle of the floor. I made his room so that he had duddies all over the floor. And he was sitting there under the fan, and I said, "Prabhupada, why aren't you sitting on your asan?" And he said, "Because the mosquitoes have taken my asan." So I said, "Well, can I bring you a fan?" And he said, "No, just sit." And he had me sit down next to him. And he said, "You know, what is the need for all of these things? We could go sit on the bank of the Ganga, chant Hare Krishna, and someone would come along and bring us a chapati." So he was very simple, very humble. Another wonderful story that I always remember, of course, is his compassion. When I was in distress and I wanted to just move to Birnagar, which was Bhaktivinoda Thakur's ashram for women, I asked Prabhupada if I could do that and shave my head and just, completely renounce everything, because I was under stress that I was being criticized. So Prabhupada said, "Kaushalya, you are looking for a calm seat. You will not find it here in this material world. You will find it with Radha and Krishna." He said, "But you have a very good captain, so what is the difficulty?" So we have a very good captain to help guide us through life. And if we can encourage others to be tolerant and be loving and to be compassionate, I find it unspeakably sad sometimes, the kinds of things that are happening in the world today. And so I often think of Srila Prabhupada. How would he react? What would he say? And I think he would say that we must learn to live with one another, be tolerant with each other, and not be so judgmental. When Prabhupada, going back to the story where he was telling me about the captain of my ship, he never once asked me what was being said. He never once judged me. He never once said, "What happened? What did they say? What did you do? Blah, 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 blah." Nothing, none of that. He just said, "Just stay here with me and you will be all right." So I think we have to realize that in life there's no calm sea. There's going to be pain and suffering, either with ourselves or with the world around us. But if we can spread love, if we can spread Krishna consciousness in a non-dogmatic, tolerant way, I think the whole world will be a better place for it. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Bhargava Prabhu. And again, we really have to keep it tight now. 10 maximum, Prabhu. 10 maximum. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Actually, I prefer it on the floor. It reminds me of my godbrother, Murli Vadna. Kaushalya knows him, he's a good friend. And he set the tiles in this floor. He was one of the people who set the tiles. So for those who don't know me, I was a gadfly of Prabhupada's. I used to follow him around and photograph him. Not that he really wanted to be photographed, but he accepted it for the publications. That's how I presented it. And some of the things that he said that I got to ask him. Most of the time, devotees like in Vrindavan, they had access to Prabhupada, and they didn't go in and bother him. They wanted him to finish his books. And very rarely we'd go in and if we had a question. Anyway, I got to ask a few questions. I repeat them the answers every year. Jadharani asked me to ask Prabhupada if he was present in his pictures. And Prabhupada said, if you think of me, then I'm there. I ask him sometimes, I have a question that's too detailed for the scriptures. And if you're not there, the spiritual master isn't there, what should I do? He said, if you chant Hare Krishna very nicely, he said, all the answers will come from within. And his Siddhanta, when they asked him what would please him the most, this is not I heard directly, but he said, simply you love Krishna. And, Krishna is interested in the intention. So, he can serve in a mood of desire for adoration, fame, and distinction. Or you can serve to please Krishna. And that's what it's all about. The Bhagavad Gita says, Krishna says, think of me. Then he says, worship me. Pay your homage unto me. Prabhupada's godbrother once said you can place an image of Prabhupada. This is after Prabhupada's passing. You place an image of Prabhupada in your own heart and ask questions also. We were on a walk in Paris, and he turned and faced the devotees. He said, I want you to all become Krishna-conscious philosophers and defeat these rascal scientists and philosophers. So he's very serious about that. That's what Istagosta used to be. Remember Giri Raj when in Boston, Haridananda would get up there and he'd play the adversary, and everybody would have to try to deal with his bogus philosophy. So that was part of the training. That's why you got some really good preachers coming out of Boston. And so when they asked Prabhupada one time, when he'd go to Mayapur, how come he wouldn't go every time to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Samadhi? He said, why should I? He's sitting here right next to me. So this is Prabhupada's dirty trick. He disappeared on us, but that's the mark of a great leader. That mark of a great leader is that he creates other great leaders. So he disappeared, seemingly disappeared from the battlefield, and now we have to make the command decisions. And if we really love him, carry on his mission, carry on his desires. Not everybody could do what he did, but we can take a small part of Prabhupada's dreams and desires and manifest those. For me, it's making a video on the Vaishnava culture. It was a 6-hour video. It was inspired by Prabhupada. He wanted a film showing the Indians doing the 9 processes of bhakti. And it was suggested that the ISKCON films were too much propaganda films. They wanted something that shows that this was a root culture. So I did that. I played my small part. And he gave me a nice instruction when I was following strictly. And there was this woman who came to the New York temple. She was going to do a story on the devotees. And she had a really nice camera. Anyway, she loved Sankirtan, but later on she wrote her story. In the story, she talked about some devotee who was more interested in her camera than in her. Now, she did have a very sexy camera. It was a Nikon camera. But, we worked with what we had. I wasn't lusting over that. But there were several photographers, so I don't know which one it was. Anyway, and Jayadurta comes up to me and accuses me of being that devotee. So, coming from a Jewish background, I have guilt no matter what. So I asked Prabhupada, I said, Prabhupada, sometimes I preach nicely, sometimes I don't. If the person's sincere, will they still come to Krishna? Kind of a baby question, but he said yes. And then he went deeper. He'd go deeper and deeper. And then he gave the simile about the pond. When the pond becomes agitated, the sand comes up and clouds the intelligence, basically. So, and then he went deeper. And I'm wondering, where's this one coming from? So he starts saying, so there's 2 kinds of cities, Sadhan city and Kripa city. He said Sadhan city, he said sometimes someone follows all the rules and regulations of devotional service. And he said, by the mercy of Krishna, when he may become perfect. And then he said, sometimes someone's not able to follow all the rules and regulations of devotional service, but he has an overwhelming desire to perform some great service for Krishna. And so by the mercy of Krishna, he may also become perfect. So I was following strictly at that time, but since then, the politics, couldn't deal with it. But Prabhupada gave me hope, so I was able to do this movie. And that's how I dealt with the politics. I created educational materials. I couldn't be a pure devotee, but I could assist the pure devotee by trying to fulfill one of his desires. So a lot of people don't like the management of ISKCON. And all I can say is just find that piece of Prabhupada's desire, and manifest it. And he once said, he said, a good person will want to work independent. So don't be discouraged by bad management. And try to be true to the truth. You have to give up the fear. That's the one that plagues the world, is fear. I'll lose my job in ISKCON if I speak the truth, if I stand on what my conscience tells me I should do, which Lord Ram said is the ultimate discriminator in the affairs of Dharma. And Prabhupada was determined. After he said that, I want you to defeat these rascal scientists and philosophers by becoming philosophers. A couple of weeks later, I was in London, and I don't have the kahunas to ask that question, but I said, Prabhupada, these scientists and philosophers are so strongly entrenched. How will you ever change them? And he said, whether they change, whether they do not change, still I will go on my propaganda work. So the world is nuts because the head of society is crazy. Look at where all this stuff is coming from. In Islam, in the Catholic Church, all this party feeling and sectarianism, all this desire to homogenize rather than harmonize like they do in India. So we are sent here by Prabhupada. We're Prabhupada's SEAL team. And we're meant to accomplish great things. So even the SEAL teams are usually a very small, tight group of people, but they really kick butt. So we've been empowered. Like Arjuna, he was able to fight against all the Kauravas, Bhishma, and everybody else when, Virata's kingdom was invaded. And what were his divine weapons? He had divine weapons that he got from Lord Shiva and from Lord Brahma. And we got divine weapons. And those divine weapons are the truth. We have the truth. Those are divine weapons. And we just have to keep heaving those weapons. And so many beautiful things Prabhupada said. What a weapon. I've used the weapon where Prabhupada said, he said, do not be so eager to see Krishna, but make yourself so beautiful that Krishna becomes eager to see you. I've turned so many heads with that quote. These are divine weapons that we have, and we're at war. Look at those nuts in Iraq and Syria. And this is in the name of God. And look what the atrocities of the Catholic Church, in the name of God. So we have the truth. And the power of the Brahmin is the Brahmin speaks the truth fearlessly. And one of Prabhupada's godbrothers said, if you're interested in truth, you have to be prepared to stand alone sometimes. So all I can say is kick butt for Prabhupada, kick butt for Krishna. We're all very powerful. We should not underestimate our capacity to do good within the world, even with our flaws, if we just give the truth to others. And the truth has its own power. And that's our offering. It's our offering. That we pass the truth on and hope that somebody out there will catch fire and take it to a higher level. So I guess that's about it, because other people want to speak. So thank you for listening. And what a dirty trick, Prabhupada, disappearing from the battlefield like that. But that was his way of training us up. So there's one thing I like about the Sikhs is they call each other Sadarji. Sadarji means great leader. So Prabhupada gave us Prabhu, which means serving each other as masters. So you are my masters in the service of my master. And that was the original intention of that. But we can add Sadar also to become great leaders too. We're called to greatness because Krishna has called us to greatness. Not that we seek it, but we're called to it, and we should not let Maya castrate us, basically castrate us by telling us we're not good enough. We just have to do our best, as Arjuna did and the Pandavas did, even though they were greatly outnumbered, 11 divisions to 7. So we should follow in Arjuna's footsteps and fight for the sake of fighting. And in the end, Krishna will be happy. So that's all that counts.
Hare Krishna. Giriraj Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. As I was listening to all the beautiful offerings, I made note of so many things that devotees said that I would like to pick up on. But as time went on, there were so many that I can't do it now. But I will just pick up on one, which was the story of Srila Prabhupada giving a lecture in a large hall to a large audience, and a child crying or howling, and Prabhupada asking that the child be removed. So once in Detroit, Srila Prabhupada was speaking, and a child started to make noise. So the mother started to chastise the child. And Prabhupada said, in Vedic culture, children cannot be punished. So then the mother's husband started to chastise her for having chastised the child. And Prabhupada said, in Vedic culture, women are not punished. So then the temple commander started to chastise the husband. and Srila Prabhupada said, in Vedic culture, Brahmins are not punished. And he said, our society is simply made of Brahmins and women and children, so no one can be punished. I thought, because we're in Los Angeles, and it's sort of a matter of history, to read His Holiness Mukunda Goswami's experience in New Dwarka when he received the news that Srila Prabhupada had left. And I will read from his book, Miracle on 2nd Avenue. The book focuses on his period with Srila Prabhupada in San Francisco and London mainly, up until 1973. And then in the epilogue, he sort of gives a summary of what happened to him after. Then he says, in 1976, I returned to live at the Los Angeles Temple, where ISKCON's Bhaktivedanta Book Trust published Prabhupada's books, where the international lecture and photo archives were housed, and where the devotees had film production and recording studios. In this environment, I reasoned, I could write and develop a much-needed media and public relations department for ISKCON. The deprogramming threat was already in full swing by then, so I became involved in dealing with the media on this and other issues. Despite the fact that I saw Prabhupada for only short periods of time during these years, I never felt separated from him. I lived in a community of devotees that sustained me, confident that this was the life Prabhupada wanted for me. During the time I was living and working near Prabhupada, I got little direct praise from him. But he still always encouraged me by working with me in a way that seemed close and intimate, to the point that he even appeared to depend on my advice. Now I felt the same intimacy, knowing that Prabhupada was satisfied with my life and my work. And for the first time, I began to comprehend the significance of the Sanskrit word vani, which literally means instruction, but which is often used to denote love or service in separation. I had read in Prabhupada's books that even when the spiritual master is not physically present, his instructions or words are accepted as his presence. Living my life in accordance with Prabhupada's teachings, I felt him there with me. I began to realize that what I had heard from my spiritual master was that he himself and the vibrations of his words were alive. I genuinely felt Prabhupada's presence in his absence, and over the years, the sense of him being with me increased rather than decreased. So there are many relevant messages in Mukunda Maharaj's words, and he did remind me of Nrsingananda Prabhu's talk about listening to Srila Prabhupada every day and associating with Srila Prabhupada through his Vani. And it reminded me of relevant instruction from Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada agreed with the maxim, God helps those who help themselves. And he said that in the life of a devotee, helping yourself means placing yourself in the presence of transcendental sound. Inevitably, my conviction in Srila Prabhupada's Vani was tested. On Monday, November 14th, 1977, an announcement was made for all the Los Angeles devotees to gather in the temple room at 6:45 a.m. for an important meeting. It was on that morning that Rameshwar, devotee in charge of the Los Angeles temple, told the 300-strong audience the unthinkable news that Srila Prabhupada had passed away owing to the devastating illness that had ravaged his body for several months. Later, devotees who had been at Prabhupada's bedside told us that he had continued translating Srimad Bhagavatam into a dictation machine until just minutes before his departure. His lips barely moving, Prabhupada had defied the pain that his doctors said a person of his condition would be in, and speaking softly into the microphone, he had dictated the translations and explanations of the verses of chapter 13, canto 10 of his Srimad Bhagavatam. At one point, he had turned to a devotee close to him and said, "Don't think this won't happen to you." Mentally active and philosophically astute, Prabhupada had spoken and interacted with his disciples almost until the moment when, suddenly rising, he had uttered Hare Krishna and sunk backwards as he left. The sound of the devotees chanting and crying had filled the room. None of these details were yet known to me that morning as I rose blindly from the temple room and walked out into the early morning Los Angeles sunshine. Everything was too bright, like a plastic set from the huge Hollywood movie lots just a few blocks away. I scuffled north toward my office and apartment, my thoughts clamoring to be noticed in the whirlwind that raged inside my head. Prabhupada, what was it like as you left your body, I thought. How can I make it without you? I don't even know what it means to say you are dead. Dead. The word sounded ridiculous in connection with Prabhupada. I knew I had experienced that even without being physically present. Prabhupada was always with me. Why then did I feel like this? Why couldn't I draw on my realization of Prabhupada's Vani to overcome the grief that I felt engulfing me? I fumbled for my keys and heard the phone ringing inside my apartment. I got to it just in time. "Hello," I said. "Is it true about Srila Prabhupada?" When I heard Shamsundar's voice, my eyes flooded and I couldn't speak. Here he was on the phone, this person who was so dear to Prabhupada and who was so close to me, with whom I'd shared San Francisco and London, and with whom I'd planned projects, and with whom I'd excitedly torn open envelopes with A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami written on the back. This, all of this, poured from my memory, triggered by the sound of his voice. How could this be happening? How could Prabhupada be gone? I gasped for breath. The voice on the other end of the phone was silent. "Yes," I croaked at last, "it's true." "When?" "I don't really know many details yet," I said. Tears dripped from my chin, but I tried to control my voice. "A few hours ago, I guess, in India." "But you know that." "Were you at the temple?" Yes, Rameshwar made the announcement. I wondered why such details mattered now. Shamsundar seemed to be waiting for me to say more, but I didn't know what else to say. I owed Prabhupada money, Shamsundar said, finally. I hope I can clear up my financial situation soon, and make good on the debt I owed him, and pay it back to the book trust. Yes. You want to go now? He asked me. I guess so, but I don't know where or for what, I said. I know, he said, and we hung up. I put my head in my hands and sobbed, thinking of the words of the 16th century Bengali poet Narottam Das Thakur, who had written that being devoid of the association of Lord Chaitanya and his followers, all he could do was weep. Then I went into the bathroom and threw some cold water over my face. It trickled down my neck and over my crumpled clothes. I will go back to the temple to be with Prabhupada's disciples, I thought. I will greet the deities that he installed because that's what he would want. From the street, I could hear the deity greeting had already started. Yamuna's amplified voice rang out from the open doors. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. I remembered the happy moments making the record with her in London, and how Prabhupada loved the way she sang about his Lord Govinda. My thoughts were interrupted by a good-natured devotee named Gauranga who came up to me as I headed toward the temple. He didn't live in the community, but he came almost every day at some point or other. Hey, Haribol Mukunda, he said, smiling as bright as ever. Do you have any jumper cables? I'm having some car problems. As usual, right? He laughed. That's what you get for buying a car for under $500. His routine concerns took the wind out of me for a second, until it dawned on me that he hadn't heard yet. I opened my mouth to tell him, but he spoke again before I could form the sentences out loud. Mukunda, are you okay? He asked, and I nodded mutely. The thing is, I'm kind of in a hurry. Do you have any cables or not? Instead of telling him the news, I said simply that I could help. He was still unconsciously living in the old world, where Srila Prabhupada was physically present. And I didn't want to be the one who broke his last few precious moments in the safety of that world. And that's the end. I also wanted to read it, apart from its profound relevance, because Mukunda Maharaj himself has faced some very severe health challenges recently, one after the other. I guess he broke his hip, and then it turned out that he needed cardiac bypass surgery, which was a very difficult combination and very painful. But he, by Krishna's grace, he passed through both of the severe challenges. I mean, at one stage, the doctors were saying it's very likely that he could pass away on the operation table. But it was really quite a miracle that he was able to pass through both of those. But still, I thought it would be nice to remember him on this occasion and pray for him. So thank you very much. We'll continue with the program. I'll be here in the evening also and speak as part of the Sunday program, and hope to see as many of you there as possible. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Maharaj. Maharaj himself has not been feeling so well, and we really thank him for taking the trouble to come down today from Carpinteria. Hare Krishna. So we have only 2 minutes. The Pushpanjali will start promptly a quarter of. Vasant Prabhu has convinced me that his talk is only 1 minute, so we'll allow him to say something. All right. Hare Krishna.
Jai Hare Krishna, my name is Vasanta Das. Jai Srila Prabhupada. I just wanted to share one quick remembrance, and that is when I was in Henry Street in 1974, I was a very new devotee, and we went to the airport to JFK to welcome Srila Prabhupada, who was coming there at that time. I had never met him before. I had never been to an airport kirtan before. And this was in the international terminal at JFK. Normally there are a lot of sounds in airports. You have announcements, you have flight announcements, you have taxi cabs, you have vendors, you have so many things. We were probably 100 devotees strong. And when the Srila Prabhupada came through the gate, you could not hear anything but kirtan. The kirtan radiated 50,000 yards in every direction. It was so astounding. It completely filled the hall, completely filled the parking lot. It filled everything. And for someone who had just come to Krishna consciousness, I was pretty amazed. I had not seen anything like this. The only other thought that I would like to share with you today is a story in Mula Prakriti's book, Our Srila Prabhupada, where she said, prior to Prabhupada's coming, he had all the arrangements practically to come to the West, but he had to go to Delhi to get some paperwork filled out. It had to be signed off before he could leave the country. And the official he met with, if I recall correctly, said, "Oh, Swamiji, why are you leaving India? Why you want to leave India? Better you preach here. Better you go into the prisons in Delhi. Bring your message there. Go there and then come back to see me in 6 weeks." So Prabhupada did like this. And I'm wondering, in terms of level of determination, how many of us would have said, all right, I'm done. I cannot take this further. Why would I want to do this? But Prabhupada did this, came back to that official. The official was, of course, humbled, signed off on whatever that paperwork was, and, well, the rest is history. Thank you very much. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna. Hari Bol. Subhas. You can tell what's coming up and everything.
Well, who's going to speak first? Because my voice won't last. I know we're going to have to give us one.
Just a real quick, got a minute, right? So I got to be with Prabhupada in India in 1977. It started out in Gaur Purnima in Mayapur. Prabhupada started canceling lectures.
Okay.
He started to get sick, and we started to worry about him. And then from there, he went to Bombay. And in Bombay, there was a life member named Mahadev Kartikeya that told Prabhupada that you should go to Rishikesh to restore your health. So Prabhupada decided to go ahead and go to Rishikesh. So we got to Rishikesh, and it was really nice for about 2 weeks. Prabhupada was giving darshan every night. And he was talking a lot about don't misinterpret the Bhagavad Gita. He saw some quote painted on a wall. And the theme, there's a lot of tapes from that time where you could hear the lectures or the room conversations. Every night the theme was don't misinterpret Bhagavad Gita. You need Bhagavad Gita as it is. So everything was going really nice. I don't have time to tell all the pastimes, but one night, all of a sudden, there was a big storm. Like the power was going on and off, and it was we had 2 weeks of great weather, and all of a sudden, there's this big storm. And we had a house on the Ganges. A life member donated a house for use. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj, Bhakti True Maharaj, and myself slept downstairs, and Prabhupada was upstairs with Upindra. And at 2:30 in the morning, Upindra came down and woke us up, and he said, Prabhupada just said, tomorrow we will go to Vrindavan. Better to die in Vrindavan. We were going to go to Chandigarh, but he canceled all that and it was like the age of Kali Yuga coming on with the big storm. And then Prabhupada saying that I've come, tomorrow we'll go to Vrindavan. Better to die in Vrindavan. So we went to Vrindavan. I'm making this as short as I can. I'll be just another minute. And Prabhupada arrived. He couldn't walk anymore. We carried him around in a chair. But most of the devotees still didn't know how bad his health had gotten. They thought he could still walk. So Prabhupada said to take him in front of the deities. So we took him in front of Nitai Gauranga. And he stood up out of the chair, and then someone took the chair away from behind him. But he gazed at the deities for a minute, and tears came out of his eyes. And then he went to sit down, and the chair wasn't there. Luckily, we were at his side, so we could catch him before he fell down. And so we got the chair back, and everybody's looking at each other like, wow, this is serious. So he got in front of Krishna Balaram, and same thing, tears came out of his eyes, and then Radha Shamachandra Lilita and Vishaka. Then he said, I want to see all the devotees in my room. And so when all the devotees gathered in his room, okay, it's just this one quick. So Prabhupada spoke on May 17th. So I cannot speak. I am feeling weak. I was to go to other places like Chandigarh, but I canceled the program because the condition of my health was very deteriorating. So I preferred to come to Vrindavan. If death takes place, let it take here. So there is nothing new to be said. Whatever I have to speak, I have spoken in my books. Now you try to understand and continue your endeavor. Whether I am present or not present, it doesn't matter. As Krishna is living eternally, similarly, the living being also lives eternally. But kirtan yasya sha jiva, one who has done service for the Lord, lives forever. So you have been taught to serve Krishna, and with Krishna will live eternally. Our life is eternal. Nahanyate hanyamane sarire. A temporary disappearance of this body, it doesn't matter. Body is meant for disappearance. Taha dehantara prapti. So live forever by serving Krishna. Thank you very much. All glories to Prabhupada.
Om Agyana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavangsha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagara Raghunathan Vitangsa Jivam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitangscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavani Paschatya Deshatarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Namine Shri Varshabhanavi Devi Dayataya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Dayane Prabhave Namaha Madhuryojvala Premadhya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktira Shri Gora Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostate Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Virudapasiddhanta Dvanta Harine Namo Gorakishoraya Sakshad Vairagya Murtaye Vipralambha Rasambhode Padambojaya Te Namaha Namo Bhaktivinodaya Satchidananda Namine Gaura Shakti Sarupaya Rupanuga Parayate Gaura Virbhava Bhumestvang Nirdeshta Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Shri Jagannathaya Te Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitana Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahabharanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratushe Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Sarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Jayatang Surato Pangor Mama Mandamatirgati Matsarvasva Padam Bhojo Radha Madana Mohano Divyad Vrindaranya Kalpadrumadha Srimad Ratnagara Singhasanasto Srimad Radha Srila Govinda Devo Prishtalibi Sevyamano Smarami Shriman Rasarasarampi Vangsivata Tatastitaha Karshanvenu Swanar Gopir Gopinata Shriyestunaha Taptakanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So now we'll recite Srila Prabhupada's Pranam mantras, and after each time we'll offer some flowers. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Itinamane Esha Pushpanjali. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Itinamane Namaste Gauravani. Oh, I'm sorry. We'll just do Pushpanjali after the first one. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Itinamane Esha Pushpanjali. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Vastatari Satarine. Sing it again. That songbook. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Pasta Tarishatarine. Ye anilo premananam karuna prachu. Ye anilo Ye anilo premananam karuna prachu.